born in Hayward, California at the hospital, but I came home to Castro Valley where I grew up in the same house and didn't leave and move away till I went to college. I remember a little bit growing up, not a lot, but we lived on a cul-de-sac. It was a court, and so we could ride our bikes down in the court. There weren't many cars there. I would play, when I was real young, I'd play dolls. We'd bring our blankets out to the front lawn in the shade, and each blanket was a different room of a house, and we'd play dolls. When I played with dolls, we would haul everything out into the front yard. We had a big shade tree that was real shady, and each blanket, we'd take 5 or 6 blankets. One would be the kitchen, and we had a little wooden stove, and I'd play in that, and then one would be the bedroom, and we'd make put blankets, and I had a little wooden doll crib, and so I guess we would dress them, and we'd wash their clothes. If it was a hot day, we'd get a pan of water and just wash all the doll clothes just to kind of cool off and play that way.
I was born in Portland, Oregon. My parents were living in Portland. My dad was going to school there, and after he graduated, I assume, they moved to Kelso in Washington, and that's my first memory of my childhood is in Kelso. And it was also the first home that my parents rented, and then the first home that they actually bought and lived in. My earliest memories of my childhood is at the rental house in Kelso. It was actually out in the country up on top of a hill, the ridge. Had the best sledding hill ever. We didn't get a lot of snow, and our sledding hill, as they called it, was not a meadow. We were actually sledding on the street that went up to there. So, and sometimes it really worked out as a benefit because all our dads would go to work and there would be a rut down the road, and that would be flattened out to snow and make a real hard surface, and we could sled on that. And if it stayed cool throughout the day, then we were really good. The worst part about it, if it got warmer, those spots would melt the quickest, and so we had just straight asphalt or streets on there.
I'm king of the hill!
We went to Linfield College. I was in a dorm. Dorm life was great. It was just all women in the dorm. We also, at that time, this is way back, of course, we had to wear dresses to class my freshman year. We could not wear pants. Finally, the second year I went, we could wear a pantsuit, no jeans and stuff. Friday night through Sunday breakfast was casual, and you could wear your jeans and very casual. By the time we graduated, I graduated in 1970, it was, we could wear nice looking pants, slacks to classes.
Yeah, college was a lot different from high school for me. I did very little homework. I did it all at school. College with the lecture system was a hard learning curve for me. Fortunately, my freshman year, the first year in college, my roommate only went the first semester. He decided the college there was not the thing for me, so I had my room to myself. And that helped me tremendously. The room was quiet, developed study habits. In fact, it was the first year that I made, first and only year to make the dean's list.
I worked part-time in the cafeteria at the college, cooking and setting tables or setting up the food and that kind of thing. It was kind of fun.
I also worked in the cafeteria for extra spending money, and it was a big source of where after we got married, that's where we ate most of our meals because we didn't have that much money.
both went to the Baptist Church youth group, or college age group, and then I would notice him more. So that's kind of my first remembrance of meeting him. I don't know that there was a certain time that you really met him, but we were just kind of always hanging around in the same group.
The first time I remember, and I know specifically when it was, and we were in the college youth group, and they had a room there that we used consistently as where the youth group doing. On the edge of one of the sides of the room, there was a set of tables, a flat room. She was leaning against the table. Here's this young woman, real pretty girl with blonde hair, long blonde hair. And I said, oh wow, that's somebody I'd like to get to know. Didn't realize at that time that we were in a math class together, we were in a calculus class together. And as I said, we had, because of the youth group there, we had a lot of shared friends.
Let us stand while we sing Jesus Loves Me. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones or whom he loves, they are weak, but he is strong.
We had formal dances at school. They were a big deal. I don't know if it was once or twice a year anyway, we had them. And the girls, you'd get all dressed up, you had long dresses, and the guy would ask you to the dance, and whoever you were dating or whatever, and then he'd bring flowers, so you'd get a corsage pinned on, and you'd get a boutonniere for him, and then we'd go to the dance and dance, slow dance or whatever was popular back then.
I had a car starting my sophomore year in high school. I mentioned in my second semester freshman that I made the dean's list. My reward for doing that was my parents had bought a new sedan car for them, and I got the old 1956 Chevrolet car, which had a lot, and so that was our first date. Because we had a car, we could go somewhere, and the college at Linfield is in McMinnville, which is only about an hour's drive to the beach. So we had a Saturday, we drove, I asked if we'd like to go to the beach, and we just drove down to the beach and spend the day. And I remember we stopped at a restaurant and had a meal and then drove back. And that car was our first car together. And my parents let us use it even after we got it married, and had it when we had our first years in Massachusetts.
Holy jumping
Go ahead,
Okay.
you started this.
Grandma and I had been dating for quite a while, and and I invited her along with some of their other classmates to go Thanksgiving to come to our house in Longview. And so we did that, and on, I don't know, one of the days between, either Friday or Saturday, I don't know which was doing it, Grandma and I went downtown, or just walking around the town. Walked in front of a jewelry store, and here's all the engagement rings sitting here in the thing. We ended up going inside, and she was trying on rings. When she walked out, she had a ring on her finger.
Okay, and our wedding day, we got married in Castro Valley, California, where the church I had grown up in, and Gary and his family drove down from Oregon and got a motel and stayed there. And so I just remember getting dressed and ready, and I don't know if I remember that much about this actual ceremony, but I remember walking around at the reception thinking, oh, I'm married now. Oh, I'm married now. And because it was just like a big turning point, the ceremony, and then after that, we're married.
And my moment that I remember most about the wedding is as Grandma said, is my parents, myself, and one of my fraternity brothers drove down to Castro Valley. We stayed in a motel. My moment that I remember most at the wedding was after we said the vows and we were walking down the aisle back after this went, with Betty with her arm around my waist. I've never been so sure of anything in my life as that very moment. I still remember with the vows. I was so nervous before the ceremony, but as soon as she walked me next, we walked down that aisle, seeing everybody, I knew instantly this was just right. This is how everything else and every day of the life since then has proven that, verified that information. Okay, so after we were married, Grandma still I'd already graduated. I got my graduation, but Grandma still had another year to go. I didn't really have a plan for our future because the Army and the draft was something that was not of my choosing, but ended up being one that the government chose for me.
We were newlyweds and we didn't even have a TV then. We'd go to the movie on base because it was 35 cents to get into a movie. We'd go 3 or 4 nights a week. When I realized one time at one date I was pregnant, I was probably had a little bit of morning sickness, and I just, back then we did not have pregnancy tests. You just had to wait and skip 2 periods before you could even go to a doctor, or they didn't want you to, for a test. But I told Gary as soon as I skipped a period, I realized I think I might be pregnant, and I was getting sick all the time. So then you go to the doctor and they do a test, and you have to wait for the phone call back from the doctor. So it's not, you don't have instant results like you do today. It's just a whole different world.
Hello?
Hello, is this Betty Haverland?
Yes, it is.
I'm Dr. Green, and your blood work came back, and you are pregnant. You're due in August. Okay.
Matt and Sarah, when they were in grade school, were learning, when Matthew was taking trumpet and Sarah was learning piano. And so they would make a program for us. And Becca and Dad and I were the audience. And they would put on the Matt and Sarah show. It was a takeoff on one of the TV shows that was on at the time. And they'd sing Christmas carols and they'd read poems. And so quite a few years, 3 or 4 years, they did this in a row. And it was a nice tradition.